everyone, and welcome back to SimplyDARK episode number 3. Today's episode is going to be very dark, so I feel that I kind of have to do a little disclaimer before I start, because if you guys are sensitive to, topics like torture or human experiments or stuff like that, this is definitely not the video for you, because this video is about to get very graphic. So if you guys don't like this kind of videos, please just click out. I have plenty more videos here on my channel that you can check out if you want to. Alright then, so in today's video we are going to be talking about the Unit 731 and all the horrific human experiments done there in the World War II. Unit 731 started out as a disease prevent unit in 1931, and it was based at the Pingfang district of Harbin, now northeast of China, and it was commanded by General Shiro Ishii, a combat medic officer in the Japanese army. At first, patients were volunteers of the army, but as the experiments reached very high levels of what it was acceptable to do on a human being, and as the supply of the volunteers dried up, the unit turned to study Japanese people and civilian prisoners. 3,000 people, including men, women, and children, were subjected as logs to experimentation. Most victims were Chinese, but they did have a few percentage of other background people. And these horrific atrocities didn't only happen inside the labs in the unit. It actually happened outside in the surrounding Chinese villages. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed in plague, anthrax, and also cholera outbreaks started by the unit, including a single plague attack that the Chinese government think killed around 508,000 people. Now, let's talk about some of the most disturbing experiments done in the Unit 731. Frostbite testing. They wanted to study the effects of hypothermia in live beings, in human beings, and they wanted to study the effects of it on the body. So what these people would do is just take, a patient's arm or a patient's leg and submerge the limb in a tub full of water and ice. And they would hold the arm or the leg in there until it was completely frozen. And bear in mind that this patient, was awake. And then what they would do is, try to warm up the limb as quick as possible, like either close to an open fire or by pouring some hot water on top of it, or even sometimes they would just let it defrost overnight and see how the patient would react. And I have to say, guys, it's when I did the research for this video, I felt sick, proper sick, so many times while writing down what I wanted to say and my main points, because this is completely out of this is just so disturbing that I can't even think about it, because I feel physically sick. And bear in mind that this wasn't one doctor, it wasn't one crazy doctor, it was loads of them. There were so many in there. How can people do this to other human beings? It's just out of my comprehension. Another very common experiment they would do there was the so-called vivisection. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but this is basically removing parts of people's body without anesthesia. and with the patient being awake. And I just got goosebumps all over my arms because this is so horrifying. So basically, patients would be contaminated with plague and cholera and all that stuff, and then as their main organs were, getting worse and getting contaminated, they would remove it with the person still alive. So they would open up the person on the table and check firsthand what was happening with the organs. So basically, they wanted to study the effects of the disease in the body before the decomposition. Is that how you call it? Like when you die, your body decomposes, and they didn't want to see after they were dead. They want to see it live as they were dying. Another things they would do is remove part of the bodies and attach it to other parts of the body. So basically, they would do everything they wanted with the body, and then when the patient didn't have any purpose anymore, they would just kill them, either by shooting them, by lethal injection. Some of them were even buried alive. Like, how crazy is that? Other experiments were weapons testing. So basically, they would have all these weapons like pistols, knives, bombs, all this stuff, and they would basically test it on people. They would take people out in a field and they would shot people. They would use the knives on people to see how well they work. They would throw bombs at them and see how bad the bombs were, if it killed them straight away, if it didn't. Sometimes they would be strapped to the tables and they would just, let the gases of the bomb on top of them, or the bombs explode on top of them. And then if the patient died, oh well. If it didn't, then they will study the body to see the effects of the bomb in the body. What they also did a lot was drop very heavy objects on top of people. So people would be lying down on a table, the patient would be lying down on the table, and then they would just drop a very heavy object on top of them to study crush injuries as they happened. Another horrendous experiments were the Syphilis experiments. They would basically infect patients with this disease and not treat the patient to see how long the patient would live, and to see in first hand how the patient would deteriorate through time. And what they would make the men do is rape the women, so they got the disease as well, and so they could get pregnant, and they would study the disease on the mom and on the unborn baby. And the last experiments I'm going to be talked about is the called Germ Warfare, which basically was they would develop all these insanely diseases. They would modify them in labs. They would make it even worse. They would crossbreed diseases and germs and all that stuff, and they would inject these things on people without even know what would happen. They didn't care, obviously, but basically what they wanted was to create a mass destruction weapon, like a biological weapon that could kill millions of people if necessary. So basically they were creating all these nasty diseases in labs. They would put it on people, and then when people died, they would take all their blood and contaminate more people, more prisoners, more Chinese people. And they would make these live strains worse and worse and worse in each generation, until they could get to the worst viruses ever invented. Then when the viruses was as potent as they wanted it to be, they would basically feed the people that was infected with these viruses to fleas. So they would feed the people to the fleas. Obviously the fleas would, you know, bite them and drink their blood and all that stuff, and they would get contaminated too. And what they wanted to do was put all the fleas inside a bomb and then just let it fall off the sky and see what happened. And they actually did that. They actually pour these fleas all over the place in many Chinese villages. People started dropping dead on the streets because obviously they would be bitten by the fleas. And when I saw the documentary last night about this, I saw the History Channel one. I will link it in the description box below if I can find it out for you. But when I saw this, people said that they saw this very fine red dust, you know, falling from the sky and getting everywhere, but they didn't actually think too much about it. And then, like, you started noticing flea bites on you and in your neighbors and on your children, and that's how horrifying all this is. It's like this affected everyone, little children, babies, unborn babies, women, men, they didn't care at all. And oh my god, this gets me so mad. Now, in August 1945, the Soviets defeated the Japanese army. They put all these people, all the members of the unit, on trial, and the sentences were between 2 and 25 years to life in jail. But when the US got involved, they decided not to prosecute these people. And you heard right, my friends. They decided not to prosecute. They decided to make a deal with them and gave them immunity if they would give them all the research that they had written down. So basically the US wasn't even thinking about the horror that these people go through. These people deserved justice, and they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything because they wanted the research. They wanted to know what they found out because they thought that that would help them in the long run in the war. All these members, doctors, researchers of the Unit 731, including the General Shiro Ishii, were all let free. They all went back to Japan. They had nice lives as heroes because they were war heroes in Japan. They ended up being professors and academics in universities, and they just lived normal lives as if nothing ever had happened. And another thing that also makes me really sad is that till this day Japan has not apologized to China, and obviously China hasn't forgiven Japan for this massacre. And yeah guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Unit 731. My heart and soul are with the families of the people that unfortunately lost their lives, and I just really wanted to talk about this here on my channel and let the families know that this is not forgotten. We know what they did, and this will be remembered. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it. It really helps my channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!